Hey everyone, welcome back to Checked In with Splash. In this episode, I'm joined by another events rock star. She is a fellow lover of musical theater and Broadway, as am I, and has an incredible career journey to share with us. Jessica Laurie is the Director of Events and Customer Advocacy for Visier. And in today's episode, she'll give us a peek behind the curtain to tell us how she does all that she does while staying sane and give us the scoop on all the key ingredients in her recipe for success. We get into her playbook for events, how she approaches getting buy-in for the programs she leads, and her advice for marketers out there feeling the pressure to deliver stellar results with potentially limited resources. Let's go ahead and get checked in with Jessica Laurie. Hey, Jessica. Thank
Hello.
you so much for joining me today on the podcast. You know, I've been itching to get you on here to do a little live brain pick for our listeners. And I just am so confident they're going to get so much out of hearing from your perspective on kind of the current state of events and also just learn from your many years of experience as a marketing and events leader. So are you ready to dive in?
I sure am. Excited to chat with you.
I am so stoked.
Ready to go.
Okay. So first of all, let's give the lay of the land for our listeners. Tell us a little bit about who you are and paint the picture of your career journey to date. I'd love to learn how you ended up in events, how you ended up at Visier, kind of your mission right now at Visier, and also just like what do you love about what you do?
Sure. That's a lot of big questions.
I know.
So I'm Jessica Laurie. I'm the Director of Events and Customer Advocacy for a company called Visier. And Visier is the global leader in people analytics. So our mission, we like to say, is reveal the human truth. So we're kind of taking all the data that you might have and then pulling out actionable insights and information about your employees. So really telling that big employee story. How I got to be where I am is quite interesting. I actually went to school for musical theater, which theater plays so well into being an events person.
So well.
So well, you often see the like theater to event person pipeline play out really well.
That's me too.
Yes, yes, all my fellow theater people out there. So I moved to New York, and as soon as I got here, I was like, I think I want a career. I was like, I don't think the musical theater, I can't handle the lifestyle. I'm going to apply to like every job on Craigslist, see what I can get. So I ended up getting a job as a personal assistant to a really high-end residential interior designer, which was so fun. I ended up being with him for 5 years.
That's
Wild
amazing.
ride. That could be a whole other podcast about my time as an interior designer.
Truly.
Yeah. But he founded this amazing event in New York called Design on a Dime. It's a fundraiser event that happens every year here, and it supports Housing Works, which is an amazing charity. And basically what it is 75 designers come together. They each have a 10 by 10 booth or room, and they can design the booth as a room. So like as if it's a dining room in a client's house, as if it's a living room, and then it's shoppable to the public. So people come in and they like actually shop the rooms. So him being the co-founder of that event, I started working on, the planning of it and found my love for events. And then I went on after that to work at Interior Design Magazine, which was like as the director of events. So kind of like interior design and events coming together. Amazing for me. And then I went on to WeWork, where I was working on the global events team there. Amazing, a program we can get into called the Creator Awards.
We will. We absolutely will.
And then I went to Poppin, which is a furniture and desktop accessories company. And now I'm here at Visier. But I've been at events that whole time, other than my second life as an interior designer. So
truly so fascinating.
Yeah.
I love hearing about everyone's path to events. I find that I actually haven't heard the interior design path come up so much. I think that's probably unique and also like, but also makes so much sense. The musical theater background, like the musical theater pipeline to events makes a lot of sense to me, but so does the interior design because you're designing spaces, physical spaces, right? And you have to do that. That's a huge part of the event design, event creation, event production process as well. So
Totally. And I think, working in residential design and then going to Interior Design Magazine, which was commercial design,
Hmm.
that's like kind of my aesthetic. So even when I design booths now and I work for a B2B company, at trade shows, which can often be like seen as quite boring, I feel I kind of bring that lens into it.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting like juxtaposition of those skills, but yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I'm really keen to dig into like really the skills and kind of like how you've applied them to your strategy at Visier. But before we get there, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing at Visier now. You're leading your team of people and you explain the mission of Visier. Tell me more about and break down for me kind of your mission with events right now at Visier. And also, you did give me a little spoiler alert before we started recording that your role has recently expanded. So tell us a little bit more about what your current day to day looks like.
Sure. So I started at Visier as the director of event marketing in 2020. Super,
Mm-hmm.
super fun time just to start at a company. So lots of virtual, lots of COVID.
Yep.
My role in the past month has recently expanded to be director of events and customer advocacy.
Nice.
And I'm actually seeing a lot more companies combine those customer advocacy or customer marketing roles with events because
Yeah.
there are so many things that overlap. Telling customer stories, bringing the brand to life, they all kind of meld together.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a team of two. We have our event marketing manager and then our customer advocacy coordinator. So they work really well together. But Grace, who's wonderful, who's on my team, is really focused on things like our case studies, our gifting program, creating customer milestones. What are our awards like?
Mm-hmm.
Coordinating with our CX team on user groups and product feedback and things like that. And then Taylor really works on more of the event production side. So she's kind of like right hand with me on our big proprietary conference that happens in May, all of our big trade shows. And we all kind of work together to resource and find speakers and do all those fun things. So
I think that breakdown, the team structure that you just kind of laid out makes so much sense.
yeah,
So congrats on the role
thank
expansion.
you.
And
Learning as I go.
I mean, that's the best way to do it, right?
Yes, yes.
Love that. Well, we'll have to have you on for a part two to maybe break down, how you're kind of marrying your event strategy with your customer advocacy strategy, maybe as a deep dive.
Yeah, ask me
So
in 6 months. We'll do a like, where is she now?
I love that. I love a
She
where
not
is she
going.
now moment.
Yeah, where is she now?
So okay. So talk to me a little bit about, corporate events at Visier. What role do events play in the greater marketing mix at Visier, and would love your commentary on what you're seeing in the industry in general. I think it's fair to say that events have become a critical player in most marketers playbooks and have been a really key driver for a lot of businesses to build pipeline and close revenue, and even in these really challenging times that we're seeing in the economy in the market. So I'd love for you to again just like tell us like what role does events play, and kind of what, yeah, the role of your strategy that you're leading at Visier, and then like I said, commenting a little bit on the broader picture of your take on events in the modern marketing mix today.
Yeah, events are so critical to our marketing strategy. So we have kind of two teams at Visier. We have myself and I lead corporate events. So I lead all of our big trade shows, our big conference that happens in May. I do a lot of our webinars, a lot of our broader strategy. And then we have an amazing field marketing team who kind of takes that to the next level, drills down, is really in the weeds with the sales team, and we work really closely. So I
Mm-hmm.
know at a lot of companies, those are the same person. So I'm very lucky that we have two teams who can really execute because that's how valuable events are to the business.
Yeah,
I would say, with events like dollar in, dollar out, like we're, $10 in for $1 out, which is pretty amazing.
that's incredible.
Um, it's pretty amazing with our events. So needless to say, it's huge. Being a data company, we are like measure, measure, measure.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily for me, we can look back and see, what was the return over 5 years? What was the close rate over 5 years? Like we have all this rich data that we can use. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for me to go and be able to make that business case because we know we're going to see the return. I also think working in, we're in the people analytics space, so we sell mostly to HR and
Mm-hmm.
people analytics leaders. And it's not a niche market, but people analytics itself it's kind of fun and interesting in that market, right? Like we're at trade shows and people are like, oh, people analytics, like what's that? It's not payroll, it's not
Right.
one of those things. So I think we have the benefit of being able to tell like kind of a complex story and making it simple and making it fun.
Um, well, I love that for you. I'm gonna double click on just the 10x return is, I mean,
Yeah.
we I need to deep dive with you just on that alone. What? You just dropped a bomb major. Like, I would love to learn, how you kind of gotten there. And but also what you're kind of telling me is that it sounds like it's easy for you to get buy-in for your programs because you're already able to prove the value. So I'm wondering, talk to me more about that, proving the
Yeah.
value of your events. Like, how do you measure ROI? What are the kind of key metrics you're looking at to kind of gauge what's working, what's not working? And then what are you reporting internally to your team and to leadership to kind of continue to tell that story of success?
Yeah, so we have a longer sales cycle. So, I'm not having an event tomorrow and we're seeing that pipeline the next week. So
Right.
we do really have to rely on those leading indicators.
Mm-hmm.
We work heavily on an ABM program, which my colleague Alex, who leads our field marketing team, really runs. But we have a lot of data, and I think we're really able to understand who that ideal customer is. So we have a very targeted account list. While a lot of people could buy people analytics, we kind of understand who's going to get the most value out of it. So we work really, really hard, even on corporate events, to still target that ABM list.
Mm-hmm.
And we can kind of see who's converting. So leading indicators, it's not always the number of leads. For us, our product's not for everyone. It's mainly an enterprise product. So for us, it's the quality of leads. So we're looking at job level, we're looking at engagement on ABM accounts, engagement with current customers. So
Mm-hmm.
we have that lens on, renewals, which is such a huge, like, I feel like not as much talked about in the event space part of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at company size, we're looking at engagement across our platform. Is this person really engaging in content, and what content is that, and really getting into the nitty gritty with it.
Yeah.
As far as the return, yeah, I think we just understand our ideal customer. So we really focus on that, and we try not to get we try not to get too distracted with, oh, we got 1,000 leads. Well, if only 5 of them are great. So we
Yeah.
try not to get too fixated on that, like, number of leads, which can also, it feels great to be able to come out of an event, but we really drilling down on the quality and like hammering that home. So
Here. Honestly,
yeah.
like, more is not always better if the quality is garbage. So
Mm-hmm. Yes.
totally hear you on that front. You mentioned, having a little bit longer of a sales cycle. So what is your kind of cadence or framework of kind of looking at those key indicators? And like, I guess what I'm really trying to ask is, like, how often are you kind of checking in to measure success post event? What does that kind of reporting cadence look like?
Yeah, after an event, when we upload the lead list into Salesforce, right? I send this pretty detailed, kind of crazy email to our sales team that's like every breakdown they could possibly have. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
report by who owns the account, like what personas came and what content might be right for them, who came or RSVP that might be in an active opportunity with us already, and like what does that say about them. So it's a crazy detailed breakdown on how we might want to follow up. I think that part is crucial because our sales teams, they're getting leads from everywhere, and we're in market, so we're much more exposed to what the campaign might be, what the messaging might be, but for them, they're getting leads from left and right. So it's important for us to like drill down, help them as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're keeping a pretty close eye on the statuses in Salesforce. So did someone go to working? Like, did they all get closed really quickly because they weren't a really quality lead? What does that say about the event? So really keeping an eye on that. And then I think, joining a lot of the weekly calls and asking how we can really get in there and help them, and hearing that verbal feedback from them, giving them the opportunity to kind of give feedback on the leads is important. But yeah, that first follow up, getting them excited about the content and knowing that they have the content and they have what they need to follow up and it's all in one place is really important.
That is, I'm like, I might have to have you send me an example of what that looks like.
I'll send it over.
I think this is so universal for any marketer trying to tighten the collaboration between marketing and sales. And I think you're right. You're not the first person to say it, but I'm glad that you are, articulating just how granular you have to be and kind of like prescriptive you have to get with your playbooks so that it's as easy as possible for your reps to follow up. I'm curious, like what so you have this like message that goes out post event and it has everything that anyone on your team would need to understand, kind of those first indicators of was the event successful or not and what are next steps. Um, you know, I guess like how do you ensure that that is being followed? Like where does kind of the accountability, how have you been able to like bake that in to make sure that you're doing all of this work to set your reps up for success and that they're following the steps, they're executing the playbook as designed?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I feel like everyone's always looking for the answer to be this like very standardized process, and here's the template, and here's how you follow up. But I find that what it really is developing your own relationships with the sales team,
Mm-hmm.
and being letting them know that you're there, as you all have the same goal, you're there to support them. So even individually messaging them like, hey, I saw these leads, like, what can I do to help you? Or even for our big, upcoming event, if there's a really important client, like getting on the phone, what can we do to get them there? I think a lot of times, field marketing owns a lot of those relationships because they're in with sales, but it doesn't mean that you as a corporate marketing, person shouldn't also kind of manage those relationships. So I think that's been huge, giving them an outlet to ask questions. And yeah, I think not being so rigid, not being so standardized, understanding that there's a lot of detail that goes into the process. It's like not every customer call is the same and not every event lead will be the same. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about relationships, especially
Yeah.
with the sales leaders who can kind of, take that messaging down when you're not there in every meeting. So
Yeah, I love that. I think I've heard this echoed a lot, and I think it must just be true.
yeah,
The universal truth.
right.
There's just no way to kind of shortcut building the relationships. You can have all the tools and documents in place, but if you don't have the relationships, you're just not setting yourself up for success really there, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with events, like, it doesn't stop at generating the lead. Like
Right.
there's a lot more after that to see the return. So
Absolutely. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about kind of this post event playbook a little bit and partnership with sales. Can we zoom out a little bit? Can you just obviously you have so much experience in events, and I think that when you get to the place that you are in your career, you could create and run events in your sleep
yeah.
basically. So I want to ask you to like pretend that like, instead of getting into an automatic car, there's someone who's about to get into a manual car and they don't know how to drive stick.
Yeah.
Maybe they did it once years ago on a little like European vacation, but it's been a while. And so just like walk me through your event playbook, like, you know, and if you wanted to, you could even back up and kind of like talk me through your approach to planning your strategy for this year. Either or, I'm really interested in one, kind of like getting your kind of the big picture take on like how you approach your event strategy, um, and two, more on like the granular side of things. Okay, so you decide you're going to do an event, or you need to, be, I don't know, just like walk me through like how do you, from the idea of doing the event to the event, it's event day and everything's in place, like what does that kind of pre-event playbook look like for you? You can separate out, those are two very big questions, so if you want to tackle one before the other, I'm open, but I would love to just, like, while I have you on the line and our listeners do, I'm like, let
Yes.
me dissect and get into the nitty gritty with you as much as possible.
Sure. So I think the first thing that a lot of people might say is you have to understand the goals of the event. It's really easy to hear, oh my gosh, our executive team wants us to do an event and it's in 1 month and we have to find a venue, and you do have to do all those things, but you have to really think, if I'm an attendee and I've gone to this event and I've walked out the door, what should I be thinking? Should I be thinking, wow, I really understand what this product is and they have such a great brand? Should I be at the point where I'm ready to talk to a salesperson and I understand the product a little bit more? Like, you really have to understand the goal
Yeah.
first, and then you can work back from there. The second thing I always do is at the beginning and the end of an event, you sit, you close your eyes, and you imagine you're an attendee and you're walking through the space, right? So you walked in. So, like, you're looking at the check-in desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's on the check-in desk?
Mm-hmm.
What's the branding? Make sure it's on your checklist.
Yeah.
It's super easy to forget the pen cup or like something silly that just makes you chaotic on event day. But I find if you take at the beginning and the end and you just like imagine yourself walking through, you will catch something that you hadn't thought of before. So those two things are fun. The second one is Asana, which I'm like obsessed with Asana.
Okay.
So even though it's tedious at the beginning to set up a project plan, it
Mm-hmm.
is so crucial. So ours, an Asana project will have, here's my cat Chef. I'll
Yes,
give you a
let's do
little
the
intro.
cameo.
This is Chef, my coworker. Little
The
coworker.
best. Chef's due for a promotion. Just whoever
Yes.
needs
Yeah.
to be aware of that.
To take if it's a big conference, this could be 2-3 hours up front, right? Carve it out in your day. Promotional emails. When do they need to be drafted? Who am I? Set it all out in front of you. It'll be so much easier once you get into the chaos of that event. Like people always think the chaos is like the week before, but it's really like the 4 to 6 week point of
Mm-hmm.
an event when you're like really in the thick of it.
Yeah.
When you have those tasks all lined up, especially if you're a person who does a lot of events in a year, you'll thank yourself in the end. So I'd say as far from a logistics standpoint, that's kind of where I get started.
Yeah.
And what was the second part of the question? Now I
So,
forgot.
okay, that's really helpful. The second part of the question was a little bit broader. Like, how have you approached your event strategy for 2023?
Yeah, I think we're in a really fortunate place where people are really, really getting back to in-person events. I feel like we were saying that in 2022, but now we're like really, really saying it,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And we really see those in-person connections and those, again, relationships. Like
Yeah.
they say, people buy from people.
Right.
It's so true. So having those people face to face, I love a virtual event every now and then. We can talk about hybrid, but getting those people face to face is so crucial. So that's really a crux of our plan this year, and we have kind of two anchoring points. So we have our big conference in May,
Mm-hmm.
which is like our, let's really generate a lot of leads. Let's get anyone there who's in an active opportunity. We have a long sales cycle, so let's get them there, try to close. And then we also realized last year we need something like that in Q4 to do the same thing. So we came up with these. Our event in May is called Outsmart. It's like our big conference. And then in November last year, we launched 2 Outsmart local events. So a little bit smaller offshoots, one in San Francisco and one in New York. So that's like our Q4 driver. So having those like 2 anchoring events that our sales team can kind of, they can always be working to getting someone to Outsmart or getting them to Outsmart local, or understanding that they have those like hallmark opportunities along with all the ABM and the field programs that we're running and all the webinars and everything in between. But it's
Mm-hmm.
really nice to know like we have these 2 moments and we're going to get people there in person. And that's how we know we can, we can sell, build a relationship. So that's big.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Just having kind of those major puzzle pieces outlined, like you said,
Mhm.
and then sprinkling in the field and ABM strategy that you said is owned by another team. Which, God bless Visier for understanding that it is a lot of
Yes.
work for one person
It's a
to
lot of
manage.
work, and you put your resources where you're seeing the value, and we're lucky to have an executive team, a great CMO who recognizes the importance of events. So
Yeah.
lucky to be supported. Yes.
Honestly, that's the best. I feel like one of the questions I get most often is just how do you get that executive or leadership buy-in? So, as
Yeah.
I said, kudos to you. I mean, it's not, I'm sure it didn't just come naturally.
No.
You had to put in the work to prove it. But awesome to hear that, you have that support.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not measuring, you're leaving so much on the table. Like, even if,
Yes.
it's not super sophisticated and you have an attribution model, like,
Hmm.
there are ways that you can track, and numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So you can show how you're providing value.
Absolutely. I mean, even to your point earlier, not I don't hear. I feel like a lot of people, when you think about events, you think about events driving net new business.
Hmm.
But to your point earlier, the renewal and expansion opportunities um, cannot be ignored. And if anyone out there is not looking at that as a metric or of success for your events, I think it's a big miss.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely huge.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about like your process and like playbooks. Now I want to get a little bit into the mode of like inspo and just like first of all, sidebar, I love the tidbit pro tip to sit and like actually visualize the attendee experience start to
Hmm.
finish. I that must come from the musical theater background and also the
It
interior
does.
design
It
background, like
does.
just chef's
Oh,
kiss,
looking at the
perfect
space.
combo.
Yeah.
Truly, um, that's huge. I wonder if more marketers, event marketers, did that, and they would see different results in not only the decisions that they make, but then the outcomes from their events. So love that.
Sure.
Had to just like go back and say like, yes, everyone do that. If you don't already do that, I don't know if I did it consciously until
Yeah.
you mentioned it,
Right.
but now I will do it consciously. I'm going to
Yeah.
build it as another task into my little
In your
Asana.
planning board. Yeah, it's like event meditation.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Take that space for yourself.
The visualization is key.
Yes.
Um, okay, so let's stay in this like imaginative visualization inspo mindset. Tell me a little bit. You can talk about cool stuff you've done at Visier, but I also know you've done some really cool things before you even got to Visier.
Yeah.
So, can you just like tell me a little bit about uh, hmm, any number of events? I'm not gonna put a cap on it because maybe it's one,
Okay.
maybe it's two, maybe it's three. Just like some of the coolest or most impactful events that you've done, and tell me as much as you want or can about the actual event itself, um, and then also tell me about like what was the business impact, because to your point, you have to start with the goal in mind. And so what were the goals of the event? Did you accomplish them? Were there any kind of like hidden surprising other goals that were met that you maybe didn't plan on, that eh, you know kind of shaped how you think about events going forward? I'm thinking about like, I just want to like, if we could like go through Jessica's like memory Rolodex of like all the cool stuff that you've done, like what would we find as the highlights in from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like from a cool perspective, like, I have to talk about WeWork.
Yes, let's do it.
So I led front of house production on a program called the Creator Awards. So the idea of the Creator Awards is, if you are someone who's kind of creating a company, creating a product that's doing good in your community, you can submit, and the Creator Awards comes to life as kind of like a Shark Tank style pitching event,
So cool.
and you win $1 million at the end of it.
What?
So we were doing this in a different country around the world, maybe like every other month or so. It was hosted by Ashton Kutcher. So he would come around and hear the pitches. But it wasn't just that, it was a community event. So we were expanding so fast globally. And so
Mhm.
this was like our big, you know, foray into a new market, or we just opened up a new space. So it would be, I'll speak about the one in London specifically. So it would be like about 5,000 people, and it would be a 7-hour event. So you would come in and there would be like a big artisan market, right? So we would get a bunch of local makers who would come and set up tables and like actually sell their stuff. And then we would have, it was kind of like a combo, like a little bit of a job fair. So we would have like Squarespace there to help you with, your website, or local companies, local food trucks, like really fun, just kind of like get an atmosphere of the locale.
Mhm.
And then you would go into the award show, which I said it was like you would come up, you would have like a 60-second pitch. And then if you won, there would be like this crazy like confetti cannon moment, and the crowd would go wild. And then it went into a concert. So you would walk out into a concert, and London was Diplo. So that one was really fun.
Oh
And
my god.
we did Nashville. There's a funny story about G-Eazy and Nashville. So it was a free event, but obviously we had a capacity.
Right.
Right before he went on, he tweeted, "Free concert at
Oh my god.
X venue," and the streets, like I had to get,
What
like
did
the
you
streets
do?
were flooded.
Oh my god.
Like our security guards were like, "We can't, we don't know what to do." Like, and it was we at that event particularly, we had like an outdoor, like a carnival and like food, so it was like the streets were closed down. So some pretty crazy stuff.
Epic.
I've seen a lot more with WeWork. We'll have to get into over a drink or two. But as far as like most fun, just like
That's
so
awesome.
like rewarding to know I can do something at this scale, like warm and fuzzy. So I always want to mention that one. And then, I think at Interior Design Magazine we did a lot of recognition programs. So we did a program called Giants, where every year we would rank the top 100 design firms, and it's actually by revenue. So
Mhm.
really the biggest design and architecture firms in the world. And then we would take a representative from each of those firms to a different city around the country for like a 3-day conference. So it was super like designy, like we would do really fun, projects, and just to hear those amazing like visionaries speak, and to really be doing it doing events that had such a high standard for aesthetics,
Mhm.
I think like taught me a lot. Um,
Yeah.
so like really like raising the bar on what what a corporate event should be, I should say. There's a lot of standards for like consumer events,
Mhm.
but for some reason in corporate events, it's like a little bit different. So I think
Mhm.
bringing in that like consumer element into corporate events is like something I'm very passionate about continuing to do. So yeah.
Amen to that. And I think it's actually kind of just commenting on kind of the current state of events and our
Mhm.
industry. I think you just hit on something that is very important to consider these days. B2B buyers want a B2C experience. They,
That's so true.
you
They
know,
absolutely do. And they respond to it. And it's different in the market, you know?
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how have you like kind of brought that energy into the work that you're doing at Visier, and what are you kind of most excited for this year in terms of you have, like you said, you have your big Outsmart conference in May, and then you have the two more like regional Outsmart events in Q4. Are those like, I mean, it would be not an incorrect answer to say if those are like the things you're looking forward to the most, but is
Yeah.
there any special elements, without giving too much away, that you can share at this point in the planning? But yeah, how are you bringing that kind of B2C energy and experiential design into your work at Visier?
Yeah. So two things come to mind. With our Outsmart conference, I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from the Giants conference I used to do, where we would take them out into the city and actually
Mm-hmm.
do things. And we've been having a lot of conversations around hybrid events. And if an event is hybrid and you can watch it digitally for free, how do you actually get people there? Because we know that when people come in person, that's really where the relationship happens. And
Right.
to me, it's creating in-person experiences that are outside of the conference center that you're not going to get, just sitting at home watching on your couch. So for Outsmart, we're taking a whole like 4 hours of an afternoon and we're splitting people into different activities. So you can go out on a boat, you can go biking around Coronado Island, you can go on a
Fun.
wine tour, you can go to the breweries, like breaking people up and
Mhm.
getting them out there and giving them those networking experience that don't feel like they're like stuffy in a conference center. And
Yeah.
I think making coming, convincing your boss you should come, buying that ticket, getting on the plane. I mean, you did so much to get there
Yeah.
and not just sitting inside the conference center. And that's something that we did at interior design, then I want to kind of carry on.
Hmm.
Um, and then second, I'll say, trade shows get a really boring rap, right? Like I feel like you start to talk about trade shows and people like get the remote out and they're like turning the channel, right? But I love designing trade show booths. It's so fun to me because it brings me
Hmm.
back to my days of working as a designer
Yeah.
and like actually designing a space and picking out the furniture. And God bless my booth production company for rolling with me and mailing me carpet samples from Singapore.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but I get like really into it and into like my design roots. Um, and I feel like you can tell, it doesn't look like you hired a booth production company and you picked from a
Hmm.
shell and you popped it up, and there's a lot of like unnecessary structure, which is a pet peeve of mine, in booths. So
We got to get into the booth do's and don'ts,
oh
and
yeah.
also like, yeah, because I think this is an untapped area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a struggle that probably most people who have ever done a booth at a trade show or conference can relate
Yeah.
to. And probably most people don't have your background of having worked in interior design. So, selfishly, like,
Yes.
that's not me. Although when I was in high school, I did think that I was going to grow up to be an interior designer. I
Yeah.
have no idea where that came from. It was a very short-lived idea. Obviously, it didn't pan out exactly. But so, what would you say to someone like me who doesn't have your background? Like, how do you create a kick-ass booth and
Yeah.
make it stand out?
Okay. So kind of like we were talking about earlier, right? Like the consumer brands that like seemingly have it nailed, right?
Hmm.
Like 29 rooms, Refinery 29, like all these amazing experiential, you go to a weight luggage pop up or all these millennial brands and like they've got it nailed. I
Yeah.
mean, you're still a person coming to an event, right? Just because
Hmm.
it's a corporate event doesn't mean it needs to be like super sterile. So I would say like think about it as a person who's coming, to an event. The second thing that I try to accomplish is I like for the booth to feel like very open
Okay.
and inviting. And I find that a lot of corporate booths have a lot of structure because they think that, oh, if we just build structure, we build it tall or whatever, it'll look bigger, it'll have a bigger presence. But actually, I find the opposite,
Hmm.
where like a little bit less is more. And if everything is just like beautiful and functional and there's room to walk in and you've got the pop up color and it feels clean, like just like going into someone's house that feels, like you want to hang out there.
Mm.
Um, our demos are a little bit longer, right? You're not just like popping in 30 seconds, you're scrolling the product, you're sitting down, you're really looking. So it has to be a place where you feel like, I'm going to grab some water, I'm going to sit down on the sofa and hang
Mm.
out. So we need to encourage people to come inside the booth. So that's what I try to do, make it a little more welcoming and bright. So
Okay. What would you say has been like your favorite booth that you've done recently?
probably our last year at HR Tech, in Vegas, actually, at the
Okay.
Mandalay. We did, so it's a 40-foot by 40-foot booth, which is quite big. We're actually doing a little bigger this year, which I'm
Wow.
excited to start. So the overhead sign was all LED tiles. So the entire overhead sign, 40 by 40, all the way around was video. And we had this amazing animator who kind of worked up some fun, like visuals for the sign, but it was so engaging. Like you could see it across the floor. I mean, you just see this video sign that like no one else is doing. And it was
Amazing.
so fun. It was also very nerve wracking because you'd be loading in and like one LED out of the whole thing, like a Christmas light, would be out up there, and they got to lower the whole thing down, and you're like biting your nails. But
Oh my God.
it was just fun to do something that like no one else was really doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten a lot into doing some sort of custom activation at our events. So we did customizing Converse sneakers at our last Outsmart local. So you could come and you could, put a variety of different designs on them. We've done jackets. We did tote bags at last year's HR Tech where you can like pick your own design. We've done luggage cubes where you can draw your name on them. So just something fun that's like active and you might not want to throw away right after. I know we could have like a whole swag
It's a
podcast.
hot topic. It is a
It is a
hot
hot topic.
topic. People
Yeah.
have hot takes, strong opinions.
Mm-hmm.
We should do like a swag like round table podcast episode and like
That would be so popular.
you know
Yes, we should definitely do
okay,
that.
I'm tapping you for it because you have strong thoughts. Strong opinions only.
I have
No.
strong opinions, and people, I feel like I get asked the question all the time of the best event swag I ever got, and it was,
What was
I did
it?
an event for Kohler called
Okay.
in Kohler, Wisconsin, which is actually a place.
I did not know that.
Named
Okay.
after Kohler. They have like a Kohler school. They have a Kohler prom. It's an amazing place. But I did an event called Kohler Design Affair where we brought, kind of similar to Giants, like 75 designers from all around the world to Kohler, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the gifts in the gift bag was this Bluetooth shower head.
Excuse me,
So it's
what?
like an amazing, like high quality Kohler shower head, right? And where the water comes out is the speaker. And it's like a super high quality speaker. And I still have it here in my apartment in Brooklyn.
Awesome. As you should.
I'm like, that's the best gift I ever got. A shower head. Not that you're going to be at your trade show handing out shower heads, but maybe, you know what? You do you. Maybe
You
you
know,
will.
honestly, I could. This might be a reach, but I could see it working with the Splash brand.
Like a
maybe
Make It Rain. Oh,
Make
Splash.
It Rain.
You know what? Actually,
Jessica,
I'm loving this for you.
we're onto something here.
I'm loving this for you. Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with that idea,
I love
actually. Okay, so that's my next swag order. Thank you very much. Okay, so I want to be mindful of time here. Thank you for getting into the inspo. I think like that is so helpful, and it's also a question I think that we get all the time from people in our community. Just people just want to be inspired and to be able to execute new, fresh, exciting ideas. So it's always fun to hear from a pro who has literally so much experience.
Yeah. Look residential. That's my biggest tip. Look at Architectural Digest. I promise you there's something you can pull out.
That's a really good tip. I'm going to have to mention this in the show notes for this episode. Yeah. Okay. Just a couple of more questions for you, Jessica. So, let's just call a spade a spade. It's been a tough time. It seems to be getting tougher and tougher out there. Just when you think you have rounded the corner and made it to the next base, something crazy happens. And so I think that it doesn't feel like I'm being a broken record to ask everyone I am, talking to these days, like, how are you navigating these crazy, turbulent and really challenging times? And honestly, like, how are you staying positive, really? For all of our fellow marketers out there who, some days are harder than others.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone's listening in and having just a particularly hard day, what would be kind of your advice to them? And also that you can relate to. What have you been doing to kind of get through and stay chipper and keep at it every day?
Yeah. I mean, I think, in 2020, events were so in person, right? Like our world was so rocked by that. And we so quickly realized the value of a virtual event.
Mm-hmm.
Like it happened so quickly, the change.
Right.
And so I think I kind of think about that change and how quickly it happened. And I'm like, something could happen tomorrow and we'll figure we'll figure that out too. So just keeping a little bit of perspective on it. And I also think, as an event marketer now, it's actually so much more valuable for people to realize, oh, we're not going in person right now. Oh, it's okay if we can pivot. Like, we've been there. Like, we know we're still going to see success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think roll with the punches.
Yeah.
I like thrive in chaos. So I'm very fortunate. I love like a last minute. I'm like energized. Like, let's go.
Well, then
Um,
it's perfect that you work in events. Like,
I know.
clearly you're
Well, I
born for
couldn't.
this.
I couldn't otherwise. But I think just let yourself be excited by change, and let change be, an opportunity for you. Like, maybe you'll do something even better than what you were doing, because now you have to think outside the box a little bit more. So just thinking of change as an opportunity, and, take that night, wallow in it, have some wine, but
Yes.
come back,
Pick your wings. Mm-hmm.
we're event people. We're very resilient, very solution oriented, and
Yeah.
we can get through it.
Agreed. I think you hit the nail on the head. The resilience and just leaning into that is probably all we can do right now.
That's
And
it. Can't predict it.
yeah, yeah,
So
and also band together. Be like Jessica. Share your gems. Share what's working. Raise
yeah, we're all in it
your
together.
like
I feel like I'm part of so many amazing like Slack communities, a Splash community too. Like, everyone just so willingly sharing ideas and struggles, and
yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's not over, but like you said, we're in this together.
we are.
Um, Jessica, I hope our listeners don't get sick of you because I'm about to have you back for like 2 or 3 more podcast episodes. I'm like, you're
Okay, I can wear a disguise. I can have an alternate name. It's okay.
no, we'll just make it official. You'll just be the unofficial second co-host of the Checked In with Splash
Yes,
podcast.
I'm in.
Okay, great.
This is being recorded, so you can't resend it now.
Fully recording.
Like,
We will
here she is offering, and here I am.
exactly. Folks, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Um, Jessica, thank you so much. This has been truly such a pleasure, and I knew it would be. For our listeners in the audience, Jessica also joined Splash's SKO earlier this year and shared her wisdom and insight with us. And we just knew, I mean, she was scheduled to come on the podcast before that.
Full transparency.
But it just made me even more excited to bring Jessica on and have her share her wisdom here. So Jessica, thank you so much. It's truly been my pleasure. And I can't wait to check back in with you in about 6 months, see how the customer advocacy plus
Yes.
event strategy is going. I also feel like that's just a good time to check in and hear if you're starting to think about 2024 planning, because what the heck, we're already at the end of Q1.
And we will. Yeah.
Time's flying.
We'll be moving on. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Such a blast, Jessica. And to all of our listeners, until next time, take care.